In this video, we're going to be reacting to personal finance advice from Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway is a best-selling author. He's a professor of marketing at Stern NYU Business School, a podcast host, and a serial entrepreneur, and his net worth is listed at well over $100 million. First, he founded Red Envelope, which was acquired by Hallmark Cards, and then he launched L2, which was acquired by Gartner in 2017 for $155 million. And he's also written best-selling books like The Algebra of Happiness. So Scott Galloway released this video about personal finance. We're going to be going through it, and I'm going to be commenting on it and reacting to it. So let's get into it. If you take nothing else away from this video, it should be this point.
You don't want to, you absolutely past the age of 35 and never past the age of 45, have all of your eggs in one basket. You want them in a bunch of baskets, and you want to diversify out of eggs and get into cheese. I mean, you want to move everything around.
Ultimately, people who try and argue away from this, I think it's really superhuman stupidity. Absolutely right. The older you get, the less reliant you want to be on a single source of income. When you're younger, you don't necessarily have the same level of outgoings, you probably don't have the same level of responsibility, whether that's student loan debts, whether that's kids and mortgages. And so as you get older, you really want to be in a situation where you're not just relying on a single source of income, you're not just relying on a single paycheck. Now, this can be through a whole plethora of possible opportunities, this can be side hustles, this can be investing income, this can be rental properties. But the key thing is, the more sources of income you have, obviously the more income you make, but it also means that you're not reliant on a single source of income.
You stop swinging for the fence and slipping 7 discs in my back, I'm swinging so hard, and start hitting singles.
And I love the way he's phrased this, don't slip a disc swinging for the fence. I think that's a great way to put it. This is, again, another super important point. One of the things that he goes on to talk about in the video, which we'll come to a bit later, is most rich people, most millionaires didn't get to be millionaires by selling their business for $1 billion or anything like that. As we talk about a lot on this channel, it's this consistent application of good financial habits over a long enough time frame. It's investing small amounts, it's consistently having a budget, it's consistently spending less than you make. And so this is a really on the money point, which is just not talked about enough.
And that's a key component of financial security, is quite frankly, is living below your means and figuring out a way to spend less than you make.
This is the key fundamental building block of building wealth. It doesn't matter, we talk about endlessly on this channel, it doesn't matter how much money you make. If you spend more than you make, you're not building wealth. Simple as, done deal, no questions asked, don't pass go, don't collect £200. So to hear this is a really key point, but it so often needs to be really articulated. And we all know these people who pull up in their Meltmobile with a loud exhaust or whatever, and they're saying, don't worry bro, like I'm going to make it all later in life. Well, maybe you will, maybe you won't, but let's just assume you're not going to and live accordingly.
I always say that probably the best financial decision you're going to make, and the most important financial decision you make, is who you decide to partner with. Where do you want to live? How do you want to reach your kids? And then third, and people don't talk about this, what is each of your approaches to money?
Again, this is a really good point, and this is, if you take nothing else away from this video, it should be this point. It's so often, I don't know that I've ever seen this talked about on another personal finance YouTube channel. So really kind of dig into this. Now, let's be really clear. I'm not saying you have to have a filter on your Tinder profile that says, you know, I'm super frugal, I can live on 10 cents a day, or any crazy things like that. But when you decide to partner up with someone, irrespective of whatever your circumstances are, at least understanding that you have not only the same approach to money, but the same plan for your financial lives. When my wife and I first got together, she was very good at saving money. I was maybe less good at saving money. She was more risk averse. I was more happy to take risks. And so ultimately we've met in the middle, where we still have a decent sized emergency fund, but we also kind of invest quite a lot. And so it's just about finding these middle grounds. But this is such an important point, and so I would really encourage people to think about this a lot. But this is not relationship advice. I'm not in the business of giving out relationship advice. Another thing that's really important about this is you can do everything right. It doesn't matter if you've got money in SIPs or 401ks or pensions or stocks and ISAs and whatever. If you and your partner have a fundamentally different attitude to money, then that's something that you're really going to have to figure out, and then you can start to build a plan around it.
But a real team approach to attacking your financial objectives is so powerful, because my girlfriend at the time had a traditional job. She was working at Arthur Andersen, making $70,000 or $80,000 a year, and she paid for our rent. And so I could start a business, and she was totally down with that. And then when I started making a lot of money at profit, it was all hers. I mean, we were in it together. The team is really powerful when you're on the same page financially.
This again, going back to this point about financial partners, this is a really good example and really illustrative of what we're ultimately talking about. There will be times in your life when maybe one of you makes more, one of you makes less, one of you takes time off, one of you gets laid off, whatever the case may be. Just understanding that there is this dynamic, that it will move up and down in certain areas, is just really important. And I really like the idea of money being a team sport.
I would encourage everybody, even if they don't understand investments or finance, to make sure they have a baseline level of understanding. They always say the key is communication. You should once a month sit down and say, this is kind of where we are financially and what's happened.
Now, we might have a video where we have talked about this very thing. Link will be just here, link will be in the description. You don't have to, we always maintain on this channel, you don't have to know where every single penny goes in your budget. You don't have to check your credit score 8 times a day. But having semi-regular, consistent check-ins on your finances, whether you're single or whether you're with a partner, it's such a good habit to get into, because what it allows you to do is to check in your overall progress, to make sure that you're working towards the financial goals that you set yourself. So I like this one a lot.
You need a certain level of basic financial literacy, and you should be thinking about it a lot, because I can guarantee you when you don't think about money, you're going to find out you have less than you thought. You need, and I'm not saying have a neuroses about it. I'm not saying be obsessed with it. But if you have real financial aspirations.
Again, this is another really good point, and it reinforces what we were just talking about. You don't have to think about money every single second of every single day, but you need to have a plan. You need to have sat down at some stage and think, how much money do I want to give them, if any, to get on the property ladder? What age do I want to retire? What do I want my retired lifestyle to look like? What kind of car do I want to drive right now? What size house do I want to live in? All of these things are really important, and all of these things are really important, and you need to think about them. And then this sort of overall plan will then inform what your budget looks like. Really thinking about money, not constantly, but just having a longer term goal. Having longer term plans is really important. And I see just a blitzkrieg of bullshit on all this sort of thing. Just not paying attention enough.
What I would say is, unless you're smart enough to be born with rich parents, you want to do the math and you want to find people who can help you do the math and say, does it make sense for me? If you don't understand how to do the math, you need to find someone who does and make a really informed decision. So I think it's situational, and then this is a very personal decision, but you need to be an informed decision.
And again, we have a video where we discuss this, video link just here and in the description, where a lot of this stuff is really complicated. A lot of it is designed to be really complicated. It justifies lots of lawyers and accountants and so on. And so if you're in a situation where you're unsure about how to make a decision, whether it's tax related, personal finance related, whether it's estate planning, whatever the case may be, just get someone who can offer you professional, obviously registered, obviously qualified advice. One of the things we've talked about extensively on this channel is to always pay attention to your fees that your pension provider is charging you. And that's basically because a tiny change in fees, like a 0.25% change in fees, that 0.25% change in fees can make a huge difference to the overall size of your portfolio. And if you'd invested in an advisor or someone who knows about these things earlier on, then that's an entirely avoidable cost. So really make sure that you're paying attention to these things. And if you don't know, just ask. Just get a qualified professional to help you make these decisions.
Then just low-cost, Vanguard, diversified index funds and ETFs. But over time, you might develop advantage. I really understand.
This is another really important piece of information, and it's something that we talk about endlessly on this channel. You don't need to be a pro investor. You don't have to have billions of dollars. You don't have to IPO for hundreds of millions in order to be rich. Just simple, low-cost index funds, making sure you've got diversified income is really, all the evidence shows that this is completely right.
My attitude is, I'm going to be dead soon. And I can't take it with me. I want to give it away. Why wouldn't I start giving it away now? And why wouldn't I just spend the shit out of it and enjoy it? And why would you work this hard and not really enjoy it? So yeah, I'm trying not to be stupid about it, but for God's sakes, order the good wine, or in my case, order the good beer. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? We're going to be dead soon, Ed.
Actually, spending money on material possessions will give you this kind of short spike in happiness, but the idea of overall longer-term sustained happiness experiences are the way to go. And this is something that we see kind of quite distinctly when it comes to generational divides. The book just there, The Good Life we did a video about it, link will be just here, where actually this is something that they explored in quite a lot of detail in the book. I had a family friend many years ago who had millions of dollars to his name, based out in California, and he was probably in about his 80s, and he paid for his whole family of 20 or so people to go on a vacation, and we joined them, and he footed the bill for all of them. And I forget how old I was at the time, but I said to him, I was just like, this must be really expensive. And he was just like, I'm in my 80s, like, what else am I going to spend my money on? Like, kids have gone through college, grandkids are set up, he's helped them all get on the property ladder, he still had loads of money. So he was just like, what else am I going to spend my money on? I would much rather be surrounded by my whole family, for them to not worry about the cost of the vacation. And that's exactly what Scott Galloway here is alluding to. It's this idea of being able to spend money on these experiences which will add value to your life longer term. So I think this is a really good point. So what did I think overall? You know what? I don't agree with everything that's going on here. We've highlighted some of the key things, some of the key topics, but I think a lot of this is on the money. And as I keep saying, and it really goes back to a lot of the key things that we talk about on this channel. It's about having a plan for your retirement. It's about having a budget. It's about making sure you've got appropriate investments. You've diversified your income. And these are just some of the really key things. Now, it's interesting to hear a slightly different perspective. Overall, I would call this like God tier level personal finance advice. Not all of it I'm 100% on board with, but for the most part, this is really good, sound, concise advice, which I think everyone could ultimately benefit from listening to. Thanks very much for watching. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe. Peace.